part of the fun of watching a movie is that you're watching the movie, you're in the movie. You don't have someone sitting next to you telling you the director cuts and the fact that actually that guy's just got really good makeup on. You actually want to be in the movie. So part of the movie of relating is this dance of duality, this dance of polarity, this romantic bubble of wholeness that comes through relating. So if you don't want that bubble popped, then maybe you should go. Because you can't undo knowing there's no Santa Claus. You know what I mean? It's like, and sometimes there's a part of us that wants to keep the illusion because the illusion is fun. And so what I'm going to try to do today is, like the Wizard of Oz, just take away the outside, so the architecture of relating reveals itself a little more. And in that architecture, in a way, it changes because it means you can't really relate from the old way anymore. Or if you do, you're conscious that you are. And then what love is changes. Because mostly on the planet, love is this beautiful energy that brings together polarity. Eros fires its arrow, and polarity begins its dance. But to get beyond polarity, you can still play with it, but you're no longer in it. So just about me, this has come from a life of doing my own relating. So it isn't just theory, it's actually wrought out in the chamber of my own heart and relationships. I'm married, I've been married twice, the last one for 16 years, and we dedicated that union to what would it be really like to have love and freedom, really, between a man and a woman. Is that possible even? Is it an illusion? What is it like to be deeply, intensely committed to one being, to love them all of the way through to the core, not just for this life, but forever, and at the same time be totally free? What is it to hold the part of our heart that wants the one, that truly wants to be seen by one, to be met by one, to meet another human soul at the deep core? And what is it to be totally free to be met by everyone? And how do these balance in the heart? So this journey of relating leaves, deep scars and great healing. Because one of the illusions that we have about love is that it's this really tender thing. It's like Marilyn Monroe, candle in the wind, that I have this really special thing here that I'm saving and nobody else will ever be able to meet it. And it might be blown out. So I have to keep it safe until the right one comes along, and then I can let you see it because it's so tender and it's so precious. And of course that's true. But also love is a raging fire. It's the most powerful thing in the universe. It's not a candle that can be blown out. It's a wild, raging being that is the entire universe. So this moving from the protecting of the heart, the keeping love in our inner sanctum for the special one, and the opening of the heart, it doesn't just happen overnight. Just like you don't grow up your mind by just awakening. You develop your mind through discipline and study and meditation, and so that you can direct your mind with your awareness. The heart doesn't start mature. It doesn't start, oh my God, you just follow my heart and everything will be great. Follow your heart and you will break your heart over and over and over until we find out what the heart's for, which is breaking and healing and kneeling for the great love to move through. So that love doesn't just happen. It's not a fairy tale. It's the work of the heart. It's the deep work of the heart to be a lover. A lover just doesn't happen. A lover is built and worked. And there's this concept in Islam of himma, which is the energy of the heart that's thrown out in images. So the heart doesn't work like the mind. It works through metaphor and image and projection. And it throws out a projection into the world. And then it longs for that projection and it goes into relationship with it. It's the mystic yearning for God, goddess, for polarity. It's the yearning for what is missing inside us, even though we are it, to go and unify with it so we can bring our heart into wholeness. So when we know that that's what the heart's for, and it's its job to fall in love, to throw out everything that's in here that has not been integrated into the world and then call us into connection. Then relationship, we refuse to make relationship this thing that the ego can own. Oh, I need a relationship for survival and security and for all of these things. No, relationship is a sacred journey into the heart of the temple. And that sacred journey is one that's best undertaken with very deep reverence. So we're going to explore a little bit about how polarity works and how projection works and what romance is, and then maybe just peel back a little bit of what love really is. So the first thing that happens as we come into incarnation as love, as pure awareness, is that we hit this body-mind experience. And this world really likes us to make choices. And here's one of the choices. What body am I in? Do I have a penis or a vagina? Or maybe both? Are you a boy or a girl? So already there's a big split. And this is what the last 50 years of transgender work and everything is about. The soul mutinies at polarity. Because the soul in its deep core is not masculine or feminine. It's whole, it's love. It has the capacity for both those. So the soul's hermaphrodite. The soul is everything. It's not an identity. It's pure awareness and love. So when it has to choose between boy or a girl, either one has to go into the shadow or it refuses to incarnate fully. It refuses to actually own the body that it's in. So a lot of the journeys that we've been in the last 60 years is trying to let the soul speak about its truth, which is that it's not a man or a woman. It may be in a male body or a female body or an intersex body, but it's not male or female. So that's the first choice, am I male or female? And then the other choice that is a really powerful one that makes this cross I've got down here is, am I a material being having a spiritual experience? Or am I a spiritual being having a material experience? Like, push comes to shove. Am I really, identify with this body-mind experience? Or am I identified with my spiritual self? Neither is necessarily good or bad. Both can be argued. Both are true, actually. So the soul also does not like this choice. It doesn't like having to choose one or the other. But often, eventually, we have made that choice. We have archetypes, and we live those archetypes. So, for example, this cross here is just going to be masculine, feminine, and light and dark. Light meaning more subtle realms of spirit, and dark meaning more gross realms of matter. Neither is more divine than the other, but there is a division. So, here then would be the domain of the light masculines. And the light masculine domain would be these guys are amazing eye gazers. They can hold Shiva. They can hold this presence. They know about chakra breathing. They know about the divine source, the Heavenly Father. These are the priests and the Shivas and the presence holders. Don't worry, Kali, I've got you. They're also the solid, marriage guys. I've got alignment. I keep my word, true to my purpose. I said I'd love you, even though you're a bitch, I'm still here. I'm in integrity. So, who identifies with light masculine? Come on down and start to populate this. You're not going to be stuck here forever. You just... Yeah. Male or female, you don't need to be in a male body to identify with this. Look at this. This is great. And the Byron Spirit Fest is along the road, so this is great. So all of these parts have light and shadow. So what's the great thing about this archetype? Yell out. Don't worry. You don't have to be polite. Shameless. Present. Present. I'm a little deaf. You have to yell out like you were clapping enthusiastically. Truth. Reliable. Healthy. What's the shadow of this? Right. Okay, so who identifies with the dark feminine? But come on down. These are the empowered feminines. They know about Kundalini. They know about the serpent powers. And you don't have to just be in female bodies. Good to see a man there. This is the energy that can hit you across the room and make you feel like you thought about going and seeing her. Okay, so give me some positives of this energy. What are some positives? Sexy, juicy, erotic, uncontrollable. Okay, great. So what are some of the negatives of this energy? Seduction. Yeah. Okay, so turn and face each other a minute. And what's this polarity relationship like? What does it look like? Give me an example from the world. What about the temptress and the priest? Yeah. Who wants to fuck a priest? Come on. Yeah. There's an erotic attraction here, right? And this is the Shiva, like the more Kali rages and the more presence is held, right? Often this dynamic is an attractive dynamic because this energy holds the presence, so this energy can dance chaotically. Okay. And do they have what each other needs? Relationships are still in process here, you know. Have you had any relationships or know of anyone that had a dynamic like this in them? Yeah. It's a pretty popular dynamic. Okay, so stay there. Let's bring down the dark masculine. Let's bring down the bad guys. Well, you never know. Look, the thing is that we all know, yeah, you can migrate. It's okay. You can be everything. But I want you to just taste the different archetypes. Okay, so dark feminine goddesses, who would you marry and who do you want to fuck? Yeah, ultimately, you would like a balance of this polarity, wouldn't you? Yeah. So just like the masculine in the old relating world has the Madonna whore split, then the feminine often has this split in their own being between the safe guy that they want to trust and will hold alignment for them, but actually then there's the guy that wants to bend them over the back of the Harley who you know is not going to be around, but he is somehow erotic, right? Okay, so dark masculine's positive energy is passionate and it will penetrate you. Its negative side is that it can rape, it can break boundaries. The dark masculine is the energy in the world that we're probably most afraid of. And yet in its power, it can deliver truth, it can destroy your illusions, it can end the things that need to end, and it can penetrate and ravish you to God. Okay, so light feminine, come on down. Yeah, you can play around and move. It's okay. You're not stuck. Okay, so give me some positives of this energy. What's it like? Open. Yeah? Okay, so some examples. I don't know about Mary Magdalene, but maybe Mother Mary, definitely. Kuan Yin, you know. She's compassionate, right? She's compassionate. She's divine grace. She's a radiant tree. She pulls her energy down and through everything, welcomes everybody back. She's the divine mother. What are some of the downsides of this archetype? Mm-hmm. Yeah, passive. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can be. And so this is often the split that men go through between the mother and the person who will love their wounded child and take care of them versus the one that they are horny for but wouldn't want to bring home to mum, maybe. So this archetype, so look across now, light feminine to dark masculine. And what's this relationship like? Mm-hmm. Can be. This can be Beauty and the Beast. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do they need each other? Are they useful for each other? Yeah. Okay, so what's the sex like? Oh, great for the dark masculine. Yeah, what's the sex like for the light feminine? Scary. Yeah. Okay, so what's the sex like? Boring? Yeah. Great for the dark feminine. Yeah. Yeah. Because she gets to dance fully because presence has been whole. What's it like for the light masculine? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Still lots of illusions here. It's really good. I like it. So, okay, what's the sex like between light masculine and light feminine? What's that sex like? Boring. But hold on. This is where you go for a reset after, engaging the dark, right? This is where you go like, I just want chakra breathing and divine grace and open my heart. I don't really want, don't fuck me, please, because I'm still recovering, right? It's like you go back into like loving heart unity energy. Does it last long though? Not really, not so long. It could last stably, but there's kind of a sex death that happens, right? So what's the sex like here? Hot. Oh yeah, dangerous. Does it last long? No. Is it hot? Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so have a seat and we'll play some more. Okay, so the trick with that relating is that it explains a lot of relationships on the planet because the polarities are tracked. Eros shines his arrow, but they attract to try to bring you into union. And the deep truth is that all of these are inside us. even though we may identify with one or the other. And you may know in your life that you've identified with one at a different time. You might have started off as a spiritual dude, and then you got into your dark masculine, then your feminine opened up, and then you went to so you got to go around the whole lot, because actually you're none of them. And the way relationship works in what I call projection, and particularly the projection of the heart and the shamanic projection of your eros, is it's love always trying to hook you up with the opposite. So this is who we really are, which is nothing. Which is a real big tragedy for the ego, to finally discover at the end of the spiritual path we don't exist. So most people want to go on the spiritual path to the point just before we don't exist. Because then you can hang out there on the edge and it's a lot of fun, just like we like to be in the relationship path just before we realize that the word marry means to die. But on the other side of that, we can still pull out and blame the other person. That's still possible. It's the same with the enlightenment path. You can hang out on the event horizon of the void and be almost enlightened and still exist. But if you step over, then you don't exist. You arise again, and identity arises, but you no longer believe in identity. So we're the great perfection, the eternal, the nothing, the unmanifest, and then we become aware, we become conscious awareness. But that awareness is first of all universal, and we are that universal awareness, each of us. When we incarnate into a body-mind, then we start to have this thing called personal identity and self-reflection. And once we come into the body-mind and we identify with it, then there's no end to what we can identify with. We can identify with our stock portfolio. We can identify with the size of our dick. We can identify with being a Australian. But all of that is just pure awareness deciding that it is something. And the trouble with identity is that because it isn't actually true, you have to keep reinforcing it. You have to keep looking at your stock portfolio to remind yourself that you are it. You have to keep hanging out with people that reinforce your identity. You have to keep the stories going, because as soon as you stop the stories, emptiness. So one of the great addictions in material world is the addiction to identity. Got to be someone. And then when you are someone, you got to find someone else. You're already fucked, but never mind, it's a great drama. So once you decide you are somebody, you're not pure awareness, you're actually someone here. You're a light masculine guy, let's say. You go to the Byron Bay Spirit Fest, and somehow someone from here has slipped along after doing a Lilith workshop, and you meet her and sparks fly. And so you form a relationship. Not the first night, maybe, but you form a relationship. And the thing about a ship is going somewhere. And the ship is amazing because it actually has love at the center. And it has the void at the center. So love happens. But you still have identities. This identity and this identity. And on a ship, how many captains are there? Only one fucking captain on a ship. That's a bit of a problem, right? Anybody understand that problem? After a while, it's a problem. Because there's no place for two captains on the ship. And so at first, there's the honeymoon because love has fired this arrow and brought polarity together, and the polarity is in this amazing experience of, oh my God, you complete me. Without you, with you, I'm funnier, I'm more myself. It's like I'm connected to this amazing thing called love. Romance, I don't know what they say about it, but actually it's a beautiful thing, right? In the honeymoon stage, because love has arrived. Love is what brought you together, fired this arrow from the core of pure awareness and love to you, and you came together on that. But then the battles begin, and then the power struggles begin, and so on, because you've got an identity that now starts figuring out what's in it for me, and, what have you done for me lately, and, how can I actually get you to love me and still love someone else, or how can I actually make you a subset of my script? And so then the trades and the manipulations and the unconsciousness and the wars begin. But they could be solved if both people realize that the idea of bringing polarity together was to kill you both. Really? Because what love demands from you is that you surrender to love, not to the other person, because then that's two identities forming a contract between them. But when love is really present, then your identity dissolves mutually with the other person. It's like simultaneous orgasm, but better. Where both of you realize the jig's up, that if love is going to take you on this journey, then you have to die together to this idea of identity. And therefore, all of the stories that you have about your identity, about how this is really great, that you are a light masculine and the dark feminine just needs to be loved, and the dark feminine believes the light masculine just needs to come down into his balls and everything would be good. But it doesn't actually work out, because as soon as you reinforce your identity, then those identities are only existing because of the polarity. So marriage, deep union, is dying of your identity. Okay, never mind till death do you part. It's more like till death unite you. And real love is not contractual. It's not like, I'll love you forever until 2 years goes by and then the divorce courts come and then we fight over the children and the money. Like, that was never love. It was never love. Might have been a nice projection, and love might have been present, but it wasn't mature love. It was a transactional trade of mutual projection for the masturbation of the self. Sorry about that. But it's all good training, and that training develops us to the point that we're willing to really meet love on its own terms, which is not something that our identity can have. It's the end of our identity. It's that which makes us give up our life for our child or our partner or for the planet or for the people in the burning towers. It's that thing that washes through us and we would give ourselves to, not something that's a subset of our ego. So the fast way, of course, is to realize all of this, find a polarity, and agree to die together into love. Of course, that normally doesn't happen. Most of us leave a bit of a trail of wreckage behind in that journey because we believe we just chose the wrong one. That maybe there's another one that we could choose, or one of these that we could go to. And of course, it's all fine because love is infinitely patient and eternal and compassionate, and it keeps reminding us of our identity and our polarity. So, the trouble is, on the way to this death, we go through a zone, which I call, this is the wounded child zone. So, let's say two people really do come together into some kind of union, and never mind outer children, they start really feeling their own children. And right in the middle is the divine child. This is us as Christ or Buddha or love itself come to earth. But around the divine child is this wounded part. And the core of the wound is the rejection of ourselves as love. So at the core of everyone's heart is this deep abandonment wound. That because we came as love, and we came to a civilization and a planet that didn't recognize love, that wasn't in their own love, then they reject that and demand us be something, a boy or a girl, spirit or matter, something, someone. Here's your name, the lineage from your ancestors. All of this is put on pure love. And that creates a wound, and that wound is like, why wasn't I seen? What's wrong with me? Or what's wrong with them? And then we try to get away from that core sense of inadequacy by filling it up with someone who will one day love us the way we should have been loved when we came into incarnation. Not going to happen. because we just keep proving it. So the wounded child normally, and this is a model I just developed over working psychologically with people over decades, is the core wounding has an emotional component. And for me, where that core wounding comes from is different for men and women, male bodies and female bodies. Partly because a male body comes out of a woman. Okay, so when a man goes back through his shamanic body awareness, he finds woman. And which is at the core of homophobia, really, and also at the core of men always needing initiation rituals. Cut off my foreskin, scar me, make me dance around a tree forever, but somehow turn me into a man, because I don't know how to be a fucking man. Because if I go back through my body, I go to woman, and there are no initiated men on the planet to take me and teach me how to be in a male body. So this great desire men have to be men, you know, and I've never met one, actually. Never met a man who successfully can feel deep down he's a man, because being a man's an illusion. You're a soul. The soul is, you can be in a male body and be comfortable to be in a male body, but you're not a man. But a woman comes from a woman's body. And so when she goes back through her body, she finds woman too. So the difficult thing for a female body is to relate to men. And the first relationship she often has is with a father or a father figure. And so what that leaves in the woman's body is an insecurity about that relationship. So most men have an identity issue. Am I a man? Is my cock big enough? Did I please you? Have I made enough money? Some version of an inadequacy around identity, because they don't know how to be a man in their shamanic self. And for a woman, it's like, do you love me? Do you love me, really? And the one thing I would say to men and women in traditional relationships, for men, don't ever try to be the love that she needs. It will never work, ever, because she is love. And she will only find that out through betrayal of any outer love so that she can discover she is love. And woman, don't ever try to make a man feel bigger than he actually is, because he will hate you for it. Let him discover that he already is enough. He doesn't have to prove it. He doesn't have to do it for a job. He doesn't have to do it through making you happy. He already is enough. So don't try to bolster him to make up for the little boy inside that doesn't know that he's enough. Because that's so much of what goes on in relating. So then the next thing is, your first connection is with this contrasexual parent. So for a woman, for a girl, my daughter got to that age of about, 9, 10, 11. She's really starting to feel sexual energy, even though it's been present before. And the first one she wants to use her sexual and heart energy for is the love of her life, her father or father figure. So she throws that energy at the father. Now, if the father is an aware and integrated and loving human being, he's conscious of this, and he gives her enough attention to make her feel loved and seen, but not so much that she's either moved in on or made to feel inadequate. But so often what happens is normally the father either rejects that energy because of incest taboos and doesn't want to feel the erotic energy from the daughter, and that can cause a wound, or he inappropriately engages. And that inappropriate engagement could be because he's not deeply connected with the wife or somebody else, and so that energy with the woman and with the girl feels like a connection. It's the confusing of love and sexual erotic energy. And that causes another kind of wound. So the way I use those wounds is that if, as a girl, you win the relationship with your father, and of course what happens with men and women is mostly they're not in loving relationships, they're in relationships that have some kind of trade and mutual don't push the kill button dynamic. And so most children know that their parents are loving to a degree, But there's all these areas that are actually just a mutual trade that are going on. So therefore, because the child is closer to love, they've just come into incarnation, that love of a daughter for a father or a mother for her son is a beautiful love. And so if she wins the connection with her father and beats her mother, then she becomes the princess archetype. And the princess archetype is the apple of her daddy's eye. It's a beautiful archetype, and it matures into the queen, but only if it deals with the emotional energy underneath, and the emotional energy underneath is normally anger. And the reason it's anger is because in order to become the apple of her father's eye, she had to not be who she fully was. She had to be what daddy wanted. So she becomes really good at pleasing men and having men think she's amazing because she's in that archetype. But underneath that is, why the fuck can't I live my own life? Why do I have to be something to you? Okay, but that anger can't be accessed because you would threaten the core relationship, which was so important to yourself as an identity. Okay, so that's how that one plays. Or she loses the connection with her father. So in other words, the father rejects. Maybe he's not there. Maybe he goes away. Maybe when she throws her love and sexual energy at him, he goes, no. From now on, you sleep alone. We're no longer intimate. We don't do hugs because you're now into an adult. So often that can produce the tomboy and the rebel, which turns into, fuck men, don't need them. It's the whole generation of women who are like, actually better off, I can access my own masculine, I don't need an outer man. And it creates a great independence and a great courage, but underneath it is grief. And the grief is, why wasn't I lovable? The rebel and the tomboy sits on top of the grief. Okay, I'm not getting the relationship, so screw it, I'll be an independent person. But underneath, I really want it. I really wanted my daddy's love. So then the other ones are, you can lose the relationship and in the light. So this is the light-dark polarity. In other words, the princess knows she's the darling of her daddy's eye. The rebel doesn't know that she really lost the connection with her father and that's what she really wanted. She thinks that, screw men, she's independent. So she doesn't know about her grief. Up here, the waif, or that grows into the lover, is the one that doesn't get the connection with her father, but knows she doesn't. So this, if you see the poster Twiggy models, the whole world that we have around what is the ideal feminine, she looks like the lost waif, really. She's kind of childlike, big eyes, please love me. She caters herself to men's projection. But she never feels satisfied because her identity is based on, I wasn't loved and can't be, I'll try to be, but I never will be. So she often ends up in bad relationships, and underneath that is a loss of power. She feels powerless. And the last one is the seductress, temptress, which ends up in the dark feminine quite a lot, which is she wins her father's connection, but she wins it in the shadow, which means that on the surface he may reject her, but shamanically and erotically there's a connection. Okay, but it's hidden. So that's why she becomes the temptress and the seductress, because she's using the energy in the shadowlands, in the lower chakras, but not in the light. And that then has a great capacity. This turns into the power the feminine has to spin the sacral center of a man and call him into connection. But on the surface, she could be busy, doing braille or something. It's not going on consciously. It's going on in the shadow, in the unconscious. And it really appeals to a lot of men because fear of rejection is a big problem for men. And so it's far better to choose someone who's already chosen you and you both pretend that didn't happen. And everybody's ego is okay. The trouble with the temptress is underneath that is a fear of rejection. So even if she gets you, she will probably reject you or expect to be rejected because it can't become conscious. If it became conscious, she'd have to know that was going on. Okay, so this goes on for masculine and feminine, and it's what generates or helps to generate the archetypal energies. We decide who we are, we define who we are by our choices around are we man or a woman, are we spirit or we matter. Our relationship with the opposite sex has a lot to do with our first relationship with our mother or father. And then that creates an identity that goes out, which is already wounded, goes out looking for another wounded identity to form a healthy relationship with. And it normally doesn't work. Okay, and what most relationships do is force us into this wound. So let's say the light masculine prince meets the dark feminine rebel, and they form a connection, and they do decide to come to this zone. They get vulnerable enough with each other, they go deep enough with each other and have enough love for the core wounding to start to come up. Okay, so his anger starts to come up, and her grief starts to come up, or some other version. And then that stops them from coming into the zone where they would both experience the divine child. So it's almost like every couple has two children. One is a wounded child and one is a divine child. Who will win? Will the wounded child cause so much drama that the relationship ends? Or will the divine child break through and help them surrender together? And remember, every child that comes in between a union is both the product of that union, but it's also the reason for the union in the first place. How many couples are actually brought together by a child coming in through them? So the child, the divine child, is that love which brought you together in the first place and the result of your love. And that child doesn't have to be a physical baby. It could be a project or a purpose. It could be just the quality of energy that comes through the unique connection between two human beings. Okay, so that coming through of the divine child also has a zone of the wounded child. And the wounded child, if we don't want to face those core wounds, that will stop the relating. We'll get to that trigger point and we'll believe that the partner caused it. It's like, you are causing me this suffering. But the suffering was there before the partner arrived. The suffering was there right from birth. The suffering was there in our first rejection of ourselves as love. So instead of thanking the partner for, you love me enough that I can actually experience in our connection my core wounding, now it's like, you're causing this, you bitch. And it can be just it doesn't need to be like that direct, it just can be a subtle implication. Like, yeah, I love you, but, maybe we should go to one of those workshops where you kind of learn about the different love languages and how to address my needs and understand my needs. I have needs, and here's my language of love. And when you do this, when you don't put the toothpaste thing on, I feel that is a really difficult thing. And so we go into there's never endless number of new relationship workshops that you can go on that will help you delay the process of your core wounding and dying. Because that's what we like to do. We want to go to a long movie, But if you know the short path, it doesn't actually matter who you choose. Because it's about coming to love together. And when you come to love together, it's not even my love and your love. Love is. And that love not isn't just for you and me now, depending on how we are and how you treat me, because I could change it at any moment. It's like, I love you forever no matter what you do. I'm with you forever, because it's not me and you, it's we've discovered ourselves as love. And it's not just us, it's all of us. So once you marry one, the process comes to keep marrying until group marriage comes, till soul marriage of the planet comes, till love appears as one being through all of these beings that know themselves as love. So that's the journey of relating. That in order to go on that journey of relating, you have to go through the core wounding and the core abandonment wound. And it's not just, I'm a prince, so I've got anger. It's, I'm all of these. All of these archetypes are in me. And once we've related with enough of them, we begin to see, okay, I get the pattern. And we get tired of people's personality, because even though for a while it's really interesting, this person has a totally different Broadway show than this one. This person, makes us feel like this. This person makes us feel like this, and this person. But eventually you realize that actually it's all Broadway show. It's just different shows. Some are comedies, some are tragedies, some are, divine plays, some are like trips to hell. It's all interesting, but it's not love. And sooner or later, the part of us that is love wants love more than we want another story, another drama, another journey. And the irony is that you actually can go there without finding the right perfect person, the one that doesn't exist yet, but when they come, that will be the one. Because that's part of the fantasy story. That's part of the delay. Anyone that actually helps you get through the core wounding and open into the love that you are, and then even deeper than the love that you are, into the eternal presence that's behind the love. Now that's a sacred relationship. That's somebody who's walked with you home. And the commitment that they have with you is not, I'm going to commit to your body-mind identity that is an illusion anyway, and you're going to commit to mine, provided we keep each other happy. No, the commitment is, I'm going to walk with you all the way to eternity. And I'm going to make that walk, regardless of what you do, regardless of what I do. And I'm not just going to walk with you, I'm going to walk with everybody who makes that journey. And then commitment is not a word to be afraid of. It's actually the truth, that love is always eternal. It's not a transactional deal between you and I. Love is the foundational ocean of our existence. And when we die to our identity and surrender to love, then that love starts to call us into the exact right connections that we need to help others come into love, and others come into love, and others come into love. And the game changes from an identity that doesn't exist, seeking a happiness that doesn't exist, to love propagating itself through human beings and revealing a culture of love on the planet. So we get to decide which game we want to play. The game that actually doesn't actually go anywhere, and means that we run out of resources on this planet to discover the real game, or the game that we all came for, really, underneath, and who we really are. So, any questions on this? How do you work through it? Yes. Well, I'll tell you the slow way is peel the onion. The onions, like the core wound is like the core trauma, and we know that it's in there, but we can't handle it all at once. So we have to take off this layer of the onion, and then this layer of the onion. And this can go on for 30 or 40 years. Lots of money in therapy, lots of workshops to get to the core of the onion. But the fast way is to realize that at the core of the onion is our invincible spirit, clothed in love. So we can either go through the wounding to get to the core, or we can call the call. Once we become conscious of this and we know that it was love that brought us together, even though now I think you're a fucking asshole, I never want to see you again. From my body mind, not from my soul. Because I know that love brought us together, I can call on that love. I can bow before that love. I can put myself on my knees before that love, or I can reinforce my story. So if you do that, you're calling the inside to come out. You're calling the inner side of the onion to emerge rather than taking off another layer. Okay, but it's more radical. It means that you have to surrender, that you have to get on your knees and ask for help, that you have to not decide that you know the answer. You have to let love be your teacher. And love will teach you by bringing out the core of your wounding. So the fast way is to vibrate your divinity. And the problem is that we live in a world that endorses the victim story. Never-ending psychology of wounding. Oh my God. It's not about not being compassionate for that, but it's like it disempowers us. Because at the core of our heart is something that has never been wounded, that is eternal, that is invincible, that nothing can ever hurt or harm or take down. That's the truth. So we can either own that, or we can own some version of a long-term healing project. And if we own the first one, what comes out of the core produces the healing from the inside out. The other way is to go from the outside in. And the other thing I want to say is that with trauma, you can only heal something at the same level of vibrational intensity that created it. You can only heal something at the same level of vibrational intensity that created it. So lots of positive affirmations sitting on top of an intensely painful experience won't do it. They'll just sit on top of it. If you want to heal core trauma, you have to be activated at the same level of intensity, which is why wonderfully relationships do it for us. They drive us into that core place that we never want to go. And the only reason we would go is because we love this person more than we love our own story. So if you want to radically work with your core abandonment wound, let yourself go to that place that you never want to go, that you decided your whole identity was based on not going there. Go there, face it, be free of it. That's what I said before at another workshop. Get betrayed early, deeply, completely, and then it's over. Otherwise, trying to avoid that all of your life means you miss the journey of love. Yeah, any other questions? The question was, what if one person wants to go to their core through the core abandonment and the other person doesn't? If the other person really doesn't and you do, then they will choose not to be in a relationship with you. They'll choose to go and find someone else to play the fantasy with, and you will have to let them go. Okay, and it's always difficult in relating to feel that journey that, okay, we're on the threshing floor together. We're on the dance floor together. I'm coming out because you're coming out. We're coming out together. And now you've decided not to dance. And I'm left here. This is the best place. Okay, when they leave to go and do the fantasy again with somebody else, you're the one now who's out. You can decide to crawl back in or stay out and be brave enough to feel it. But the one that grows the most is the one that stays in the journey of coming out, because it's not that the other person betrayed them, the other person helped them get to that far. And then you realize that any love was worth having. Instead of playing the immature game of, you said you'd love me, now you didn't, I feel betrayed, now I've got to heal. It's like, thank you for the love that you gave, thank you for walking as far as you could with me, good luck in your journey, but now I'm not going back. I'm staying out. But if people stay together with that game, so in other words, they still are together, but one has the story that the other person is not trying hard enough, then that can just be another dynamic. And it's a real shame that relationships turn from, you are the person that I trust and love most in the world, to you're the reason my life's fucked. Sometimes that can happen in a short period of time, you know? Yeah.
When you stand on that edge, you just said, you got to be brave to stand with that love, like let's say the person leaves. Can you speak about that courage it takes? Because there can be this in-between phase where you kind of realize, I don't actually know much about this love, but I am that, and I don't know where the fuck I'm going with that. And it seems like it takes a lot of courage not to crumble back into what we know.
Yep. And I think that where courage comes from, and one of the reasons that we do this work with dark and light, is because often courage comes from the lower chakras. We may get inspiration from the descent of spirit and great awakenings and visions and so on, but the courage of the heart has the word rage in it. Courage, the rage of the heart. And the rage comes up from the solar plexus. And underneath that is the erotic energy from the sexual center. And underneath that is the kundalini. So the courage of the heart to come out as love is the earth itself standing up through a human being and expressing its unstoppable power. Just like the descent of energy through the heart basically says, look, I am love, and going back in to feel safe is no longer an option. I'm coming out. And I would say that since the 60s, what we have seen in the planet is love coming out, the second coming of love. Whether it's gays coming out and their parents having to deal with the identity crisis between their Christian upbringing and the fact that they love their son, whether it's women's liberation, whether it's environmentalists, civil rights, it's all some version of the soul of the world coming out through human beings and saying, I'm coming out as love. I'm coming out as the being that I am. So you can reinforce that with the courage by drawing on the fire of the heart. And what I would say about the heart is that it's both an organ of water and fire. And the water is the compassion, and it's the capacity to feel other hearts and to feel the love of the planet. And that water is beautiful, but it's also fire. It's an organ of fire. And the fire is that capacity to walk into the flames, to be the fire, and to know that if the core of you is invincible spirit, there's nothing that can break you. That if you walk into the fire, everything that is not you will get burned away. But what will be left is love itself. That will never burn, can never burn, because it's fire itself. So at least knowing that doesn't help when you're standing on the core of your abandonment wound. But other people who have gone through it or who are on that path, they can help you, because they won't buy your story about the partner. They won't buy your story about God and the devil and your religion. They'll help you take the next step to walk towards your own freedom as love. Yeah.
Is there a way to get to the center of love without union, like without relationship?
Sure, good question. Yeah, there is, and this is actually a lot of the celibate paths and the monastic paths and so on. You know, they take you through love, but it could be the love in a monastery, the love of God. So they take you into that journey, and many of the spiritual traditions, like the Christian tradition, has the story of the crucifixion, right? That's basically the Son of God, this Son, has come from the Father, the void, has incarnated in this body-mind, the earth, and then it's got rejected and crucified, and it goes back to the Father. So that's the Christian version of it. Every religious tradition or spiritual tradition has some version of this story, that we come from the eternal spirit, that we incarnate as love, that we get crucified, that we return. So this is all of us. And the second coming is when we as a soul remember ourselves and decide now with the power of spirit behind us that we're coming out and nothing's going to stop us. That we're risen, that we're resurrected, that we've chosen to be here as love rather than in the agony of the crucifixion. So many spiritual traditions will take you into the experience of this love. It doesn't necessarily help you integrate your body-mind, though. Someone can have a great experience of love in meditation or in a monastery, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a functioning human being in the world. So one thing is to have the experience of love. The other is to then express it in relating. It's kind of easier in a monastic thing to feel that love than when your partner has decided to engage somebody else sexually. Now you've got a lot more things to disturb your meditation. And the thing with your body-mind is that even though I know in my experience from a soul perspective, I know I'm love and I know my partner's love. And whatever choices that she makes, I trust love is behind. Still, if she's engaging somebody else sexually, then my animal is often not happy. And trying to talk some polyamorous spiritual mumbo to my animal just makes it more and more pissed. Because to my animal, that's my mate, and she's mine, right? So that's not going to go away. I can bring love down to that animal. I can help that animal understand other animals and that this is actually, a beautiful thing. But the core biological conditioning is not something that you can philosophize away. It's a very real, visceral gut experience that can totally overwhelm consciousness and love. So love is not something that you can, do a workshop and achieve. It's a lifelong journey through intimate connections. And even if you're celibate and you find love, sharing that love with another human being, opening the core of your temple as love to the core of their temple as love and letting it move between you and falling through each other into God rather than just doing God this way, that's a path of union. And that's what needs to happen on the world too, that it's not just that people need to awaken, they need to awaken with each other and through each other. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, when you just said if your mate goes to mate somewhere else, and how to deal with that animal that is really like pissed, abandoned.
Right.
Yeah.
Does anybody know this experience? Am I on my own? Right. Once again, it's the great, it's the thing that often happens in polyamorous and tantra and sacrosexuality sounds great at the beginning, and then when these energies come up, then you know that you really need presence, you need consciousness. So the two marriages, let me go back to this one. The two great unions are between the masculine and feminine in everybody's heart. So not between me, man, you, woman, but my masculine and my feminine have to come back into union here. The other marriage in the heart is between the soul as spirit and the animal. Okay, so that's why most traditions have some version of a winged dragon or a winged serpent, Quetzalcoatl, or the winged is the soul, and the serpent or the dragon is the animal, ayahuasca and LSD or whatever. It's the union of our light and our dark. So what our animal most needs at that time of intensity, it's like, have you ever taken your dog to the vet? Or your cat probably, and the cat's like, I fucking know what you're doing and I don't like it. But you know that the cat needs to go to the vet and that actually you are trying to take care of this animal when it's trying to claw you. So our own animal needs the soul. the soul, our spiritual self, our presence, our loving heart, because the animal has been deeply connected with another animal, and that animal has erotically abandoned it, or it feels that. And so it's in trauma, or it's in fear, and it needs the love of your soul and heart and consciousness. In the same way you'd stroke your cat at the vet, it doesn't understand. And it's one of the big problems is trying to turn the animal into a civilized human being when it's not. It's like, my analogy is that you're going away on a holiday for 3 weeks, and you have, let's say you got a poodle, that you've kind of dressed up and taken to the hairdresser, and it's fluffy, and you like it. And you tell the poodle, I'm going for 3 weeks. Here's 3 weeks worth of food. Okay, don't eat it all at once. This is Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. I'll be gone. I'll be back in 3 weeks. The dog listens to you because it loves you, but it's going to eat all that food. So telling your animal, it's okay. It's all good. And the animal's just going to get more and more crazy. You've got to actually meet the animal on the animal's terms. Yeah. You mean when humanity awakens as love? Great, let's get there. Well, my experience is that that's going to go through phases, in my own experience, from getting past the first stage, which is at least one other person that you love fully and completely, and that you have arrived at love together, at least one. That's Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, based on Schiller's Ode to Joy. Find one other human and find your way home with them. Then love begins. But then love wants to keep extending itself. You find one human being and you go home to love, then because you are not just you and me, because we are love, that love wants to propagate and it wants to keep connecting. So my experience of the next level for me is kind of a group marriage, which is a wheel of people who all are recognizing that. So I'm a married person now. Not just that I have an outer wife, but I have a marriage here. So I can't really play with single people. If I play with a single person, with somebody who believes they are one side of something, I end up having to be in the role of teacher or educator or something because my marriage is whole and they're still looking for this. So then you can only really relate to other married people, like really relate, to open the core of your being and meet there. But then you can relate to anyone who has achieved that union is now your lover, and you can find them anywhere, more and more. So then those lovers who choose to come together and commit to that journey together, not just for their own benefit, but for the awakening of love on the planet, then they become like a chakra system in humanity that can channel even more love through it. So one of the things I'm doing this year is going back to Glastonbury and doing a modern round table. And the modern round table is not the knights and the damsels in distresses and the dragons and then Lancelot and Guinevere and Arthur in a triangle that makes Camelot fall. It's in each knight and lady being unified in each human being, whether they're a man or a woman. And the table being a chakra of love that holds and supports itself to allow more love to come through it. So, we talk about the Aquarian age, it's the age of group love, which means that those who have awakened as love find each other in the world and increase that love. And the reason it's so powerful is that it's not like business, chambers of commerce. Let's go and form transactional relationships with other people for our mutual best interest. Okay, that has a certain amount of power in the world. But lovers who know that they're love, know that they're eternal, and meet other lovers from the place of, I am you, everything I have is yours, everything you have is mine. We're on this big journey that's got nothing to do with a transactional relationship between us. It's got to do with the power of love sweeping the planet. Now that's power. And that energy, I think, is coming. So when that happens, when humanity awakens as love, and more people have that awakening, then we start to wonder what the earth is doing in cosmos. And what is the point of this amazing cosmos generating through human beings the self-realization of love in the universe? What's that journey? So that's ahead of us. And in the meantime, we work on our relationships and our unions inside ourselves and between men and women. Because truly, if men and women started to love each other again, not in this mutual suicide pact or transactional relating, or let's just have a level of management of our relating for the sake of the kids and our security and so on. But if men and women truly found love together again, that would change the planet far more powerfully than just about anything else. Yeah, so I think it's generationally different. The question was, is it the same wounding for everybody? The intensity the same? And my experience is that for the generation before me, including me, it's a lot of work, and many will not make that journey, because the world has slowly emerged from original sin, children should be seen and not heard, to a real strong rejection of the soul, to now a much more awareness. And so now some children are being born through conscious, loving parents who call in the soul, who see the soul. So the soul is not having its core wounding. They're having experiences of being in parents who are channeling the divine archetypes to them, so they're getting the reflection. So each generation has less and less wounding. We have collective wounding that we're still working through. And so, the beauty of that, of what's coming, is less and less damage to the unique nature of love, more and more appreciation of love, less and less having to heal and go through our wounding. So you could say the last generation, really since the 50s, has been a big generation of love turning towards itself and saying, okay, let's go through the healing and awaken. But many of the young people that I experience now don't have the same wounding. Yeah, do I think social media is preventing us finding the authentic, or can it be used for it? And I would say everything can be used for love and everything can be used for ego, including sex robots now and, the transhumanism and everything. We can use anything and everything for revealing love, and we can use anything and everything for strengthening our ego and our identity. So Rumi says, if you could give up cleverness, that would be the cleverest trick. Okay, so now the world is full, even of empowered, spiritually awakened, loving human beings, going to other clever people to figure out what color on their website will get the most clicks, or how they can get past the Facebook algorithms and present something on a certain day and it gets a greater reach. And all of this is very clever. But the best marketing program in the world is love. And that's what will create love. And so if you start from love, whatever you do increases that love. If you start from lack of love, whatever you do, no matter how clever, will actually produce love. How do you what? Break up an identity. How do you, once you realize you have an identity and it's in the way of your awakening, how do you get rid of it? Great. Perfect. The thing is, we have to develop one. Get a self before you can become a no self. So we develop this identity, we make it impregnable. No one has able to get into our authentic self because we've protected it and we now have it mastered. The only trouble is we don't want to live in the prison that we've created. So we have to start dismantling the walls of our identity from the inside. There's two ways, in my view, that you can do it. I call it the defibrillator. Okay, because the identity is an illusion, and the big identity of civilization is the planetary personality, it's an illusion. You can break it with two truths. One is the truth of Kundalini coming up from the core of the planet, and one is the truth of our spiritual invincibility like lightning coming down. So we can crack it from above, and we can crack it from beneath, and we can call forth the love that's on the inside out. So this, the calling down the lightning path is the spiritual path of actually I'm invincible spirit, I'm not this identity. And that starts to crack it from above, the contemplation of eternity. The bringing it up from the earth allows the Kundalini to throw off the identity. It's like you see all the images of people losing their heads and blood spurt from the neck, because this powerful force can throw off and will never be controlled by an identity lodged in the mind. So on the planet's being controlled and repressed by a culture that has its roots in the mind. And so as Kundalini comes up, it's throwing it off, person by person, workshop by workshop. The other way is to come out as the love that you are. Find what it is that opens your heart the most deeply and give yourself to it. And slowly the identity will break and fall away. Yeah, that everybody, this little candle that we keep protected in the heart, what makes that flow? What makes love move through us? Because having a purpose, each one of us has a unique destiny to fulfill, but that's not a concept. It's a living vibration in the core of our heart that when we're in resonance with it, we feel it. If we stay in resonance with it, the river goes from a trickle into a stream, into a river, into an ocean. So as you find what allows your heart to open and allow love to pour through you, just keep aligning with it. Keep moving with it. Keep surrendering to it, and that love will take away the self as it pours through. Yeah, the self has endless work. Remember when Adam ate the apple in the Garden of Eden, and now Eve, you're destined to bring forth in pain and to bleed, and Adam, you have to work forever. Whereas before you could have just eaten the fruit from the garden and you'd be okay. As soon as you eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, as soon as you have a self that then is now separate from love, endless work. Endless. Because the self is the one doing the work, but the self is the problem. You want to end all of that work, end the self. 99% of all of our problems are generated from a self that doesn't exist. What a waste of fucking time. Okay. Go forth and love somebody.